Blood on his teeth, a lion stood guard over a broken man, alive only because the beast chose to protect him. Cameras flashed, guns smoked, and from the tall grass of Kruger to the glass cages of Dubai, everything spiraled into chaos. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The lion didn't blink. Its massive chest heaved with slow, deliberate breaths. Dust clung to its mane, and dark blood, not Jacob's, glistened along one of its flanks. The sun dipped lower, casting the savanna in hues of amber and ash, as if the world itself had paused to witness this unexplainable moment. Jacob's heart pounded so loudly he thought it would summon death back from the grass. He remained still, every muscle locked in suspended disbelief. His training screamed for him to move, to crawl away, to do something. But instinct, ancient, primal, held him fast. The lion exhaled deeply, almost mournfully, and lowered its body onto the ground beside him. Not like a predator claiming a kill, but like a sentinel at rest. Jacob dared a glance at the poacher the beast had taken down. The man's body was a twisted shape half hidden in the undergrowth, rifle flung yards away. His legs didn't move. Jacob didn't need to check a pulse. He had seen that stillness too many times. He looked back at the lion. Its eyes weren't wild, not feral like he expected. There was something there, something ancient and knowing. The gaze held him not with menace, but with unyielding weight, as if it saw straight through his flesh and into the hollowed-out places inside. Jacob had come here chasing nothing, running from shame, from guilt, from memories that gnawed like jackals. His brother's face after the overdose, the blue lips, the limp fingers. He relived it in dreams, over and over. He had failed to save the one person he swore to protect. That failure had broken something sacred in him. But now, here in the middle of nowhere, something impossible had intervened. A force neither spiritual nor logical. A lion had saved his life, and it was still here, watching, breathing. Jacob felt something shift inside him. A loosening. Not redemption, not yet. But relief, raw and trembling, spread through his limbs like thawing frost. For the first time in years, his heartbeat wasn't chasing death. It was returning to him, steady, grounded. The lion stood. Muscles rippled beneath its hide as it turned away, tail flicking once like punctuation on a silent sentence. It walked back into the tall grass, without fear, without hurry, and disappeared as if it had never been there. Jacob exhaled. His hands were shaking. His mouth still tasted of blood. But the silence that followed was no longer empty. It was sacred. The sanctuary felt hollow without him. Jacob stood at the edge of the enclosure where Alpha 7 used to lie under the marula tree, staring at the empty space as if willing the lion back into existence. The wind stirred dust into the air, but it couldn't blur the memory etched into every corner of this place. Jacob still saw the lion's golden shape lying peacefully in the grass, tail flicking in rhythm with some invisible tempo only wild creatures could hear. Now, there was only silence, interrupted by the mechanical chirp of distant radios and the thud of ranger boots on dry soil. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. His tent was still pitched behind the outpost, still staked in place like he couldn't bear to unmoor himself. Alpha 7's departure had been more than a removal. It had been a severing. The cage, the straps, the darting, the roar that turned mournful once the lion saw him standing there, unable to stop it. That moment replayed like a trauma loop, each detail sharpening with repetition. The way Alpha 7's amber eyes searched his, wild and betrayed, not understanding why the only human it had ever trusted didn't fight harder. Jacob had fought. But it hadn't mattered. Inside the ranger's hut, Briggs slammed a folder shut and cursed under his breath. Nash didn't just buy a lion, he bought us all. The board, the permits, the local council. Bastards got lawyers with teeth. Jacob didn't respond. His voice had become a tool he rarely used now. Words felt too weak to hold what churned inside him. Briggs lit a cigarette, ignoring the sanctuary's no-smoking policy. That lion chose you, Miller. That's not something the wild does. It's not how nature works. But maybe it did choose you because something's broken. In him. In you. Doesn't matter. What matters is, he trusted you. And we gave him away like property. Jacob clenched his jaw until it ached. On the table beside him, the tranquilizer tag labeled A7011 lay untouched, left behind after the transport. He picked it up, rubbed his thumb across the number. A small thing, plastic and steel. But it had been part of the lion once, part of the connection. He pocketed it. Outside, the wind howled louder, lifting dust in curling sheets across the savannah. The tree still stood, waiting for a lion that wouldn't return. But Jacob couldn't leave. Not now. Something unspoken tethered him to this land, to that lion. And something else had taken him. Something he couldn't name yet. Not grief, not rage. Something deeper. Something waiting to rise. The glass dome reeked of perfume, disinfectant, and the unnatural sterility of money. Tourists, drunk on exclusivity, floated between velvet ropes and gold-plated drink carts, laughing beneath chandeliers that glittered like frozen stars. Laughter. Music. The hush of luxury. All of it built on the backs of the caged. Jacob moved through it like a ghost in borrowed skin. His tailored suit chafed. The fake name tag clipped to his lapel felt like a brand. Dr. Emerson, conservation specialist. A lie wrapped in polite smiles and forged credentials. He'd practiced his cover story until it dripped off his tongue like oil. But now, standing inside this grotesque carnival of cruelty, words felt like ash. The performance arena was colder than the rest of the dome, kept cool for the comfort of guests, not the animals. A circle of synthetic grass and projected jungle lights masked the fact that it was nothing more than a stage. Spotlights pulsed as a handler barked commands in a language of threats. That was when Alpha 7 emerged. Not walked, was prodded forward. Jacob's heart cracked. The lion's once magnificent mane hung in patches, dirt-matted and thinning. Scars, fresh and unhealed, ran down his flanks. The animal's gait was stiff, mechanical. There was no roar, no fire, just a dull compliance that screamed louder than any defiance could. The audience clapped as the handler snapped a whip near Alpha's head, forcing the lion to rise on hind legs like some grotesque circus bear. Champagne flutes were raised, phones recorded. Jacob's nails dug crescents into his palms. He forced himself forward, closer to the enclosure. The security detail barely glanced at him. VIPs didn't get interrogated. He knelt near the bars, careful, slow. "Alpha," he whispered. His voice cracked. "I'm here. I found you." For a moment, the lion didn't move. Then his ears twitched. The massive head turned. Their eyes met. And there, deep beneath the layers of pain, beneath the filth and training and shame, was a flicker, a tremor in the soul, recognition. Alpha 7 shifted his weight. A low, hoarse growl vibrated from his chest, not a warning, but a greeting. Jacob exhaled like a drowning man breaching air. But the moment shattered. The handler shouted. The whip cracked again. Alpha flinched and backed away, eyes still locked on Jacob's. He watched the lion retreat into the darkness of the cage, swallowed by steel and shadow. Something inside Jacob twisted to the breaking point. The world had taken everything from this creature. Dignity, freedom, even his roar. But it hadn't taken his memory. And Jacob knew then, this wasn't a sanctuary. It was hell, and he was already in it. The night smelled like ozone and dust, pregnant with tension and the weight of decision. Jacob crouched behind a row of ornamental palms, eyes fixed on the service corridor's security panel. His hands trembled, not with fear, but anticipation, coiled tight after weeks of pretending, lying, surviving. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the hallway lights flickered once, then again, then failed. 6 minutes. That was the window Amir promised. Jacob moved. The lock disengaged with a hollow click. He opened the cage door. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Alpha 7 stood motionless in the shadows, golden eyes locked on Jacob's face like a question. Then, without a sound, the lion stepped out. Not frenzied, not feral, deliberate. Jacob expected him to vanish into the maze of corridors, to run like the hunted animal he had become. But Alpha didn't. He turned and waited, breath steaming in the cold hallway light. A silent pact passed between them. Then the alarms shrieked. Red strobes exploded across the ceiling. Doors slammed open. Shouts echoed. Jacob sprinted, Alpha pacing him like a phantom of muscle and fury. A guard appeared at the intersection, rifle rising. Too slow. Alpha 7 leapt. A burst of violence, teeth flashing like lightning through the dark. The man didn't scream. There wasn't time. Blood painted the wall in arcs, and Alpha landed beside Jacob without breaking stride. They ran through a palace of decadence shattered by truth, crystal chandeliers swinging, marble tiles slippery beneath boot and paw. Smoke canisters filled the air with panic. Orders screamed over radios. Jacob reached the exit. A dull green truck idled just beyond the compound gate, its back door yawning open like salvation. Amir was gone, already vanished into the desert. Jacob dove into the bed of the truck. Alpha 7 bounded after him, his body heaving, chest slick with sweat and blood. The engine roared. They didn't speak. There was no need. As the city of glass and cruelty disappeared behind them, Alpha curled his massive frame beside Jacob, resting his head across the man's lap. Not like a beast, like a friend, bone deep and soul familiar. By dawn, they were just shadows on a back road, fleeing the empire of a man who had confused ownership with love. Weeks later, the world saw the truth. The bruises, the chains, the whip cracks caught on camera, the miracle of the lion who remembered mercy, and the man who returned it. They called it a revolution in conservation, but for Jacob it was simpler. He wasn't healing the world, he was healing with it, one scar at a time.